Alright, welcome back. I think this is video lecture 9 for computer concepts. We left off talking about viruses and spyware and that sort of thing. So now we're going to discuss how to get rid of them. Now, antivirus, anti-spyware, various security software is typically what you're going to use. For whatever program can get on your computer, there's always a way to get it off. Now, a firewall, something worth mentioning. You probably heard this term, or will hear this term, a couple of times. But a firewall is built into most computers. There used to be separate programs you had to install, but now they're pretty much built into most computers. And what its purpose is it allows some data to come through to your computer from the internet, but it makes sure others can't. So if someone's trying to, for example, hack into your system or do something like that, the firewall would do its best to prevent them from gaining access. Now, of course, if you allow them access, they'll come right in. But under normal circumstances, it won't just let random bits of information come to your computer unless you're requesting it. So that's one way to keep things off your computer, because sometimes viruses can just randomly appear on your computer and install themselves through vulnerabilities and holes. Just because you're online, you don't have to actually go to a website sometimes to get them. Now, antivirus would be one way. This keeps a record of known viruses. You can scan, remove anything that's on your system, and it actively sits there and tries to prevent viruses from actually getting on your computer. So prevents them and typically gets rid of them once they're already there. Now, you only need one antivirus software. I have run into people who are like, I've installed 2 or 3 so I can make sure I don't get any viruses. And that's not a good thing. An antivirus uses a specific amount of resources. And if you have 2 or 3 antivirus softwares, they're going to conflict with each other. If you think about it, what does an antivirus do when it finds a virus? It will take it and quarantine it and remove it and things like that. Well, if I find a virus and I move it here, and the other antivirus's purpose is to get rid of the viruses too, it sees that this virus just moved somewhere, it's going to try to stop it, and the two are going to fight over who gets control of the virus, basically. And your system will suffer, probably, for it. So you only actually need one. Now, as to which one, depends. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. Now, Windows, Mac, and Linux viruses. It's not very uncommon that at this point, someone says, I have a Mac. I never get viruses. I don't even have to worry about them. And that's actually not entirely true. Now, Windows does tend to get the most viruses, but that's for a particular reason. Windows has, 70–80% of the market. If you remember back in the previous lecture, what was the purpose of a virus? To basically screw up as much stuff as possible for the most part. Now, if that was your goal, would you attack the small little percentage over here or the large percentage? You'd attack the large percentage. So Windows does indeed get most of the viruses, and you definitely have to have a virus scanner for it. But that doesn't mean the others can't get viruses either. Macs actually can get viruses, and so can Linux. Now, it's not as common because not many people are going to make viruses for Macs because there's just such a small population of them. It's much easier to make one for Windows because there's just so many of them. Now, I will say one Mac virus I did hear about actually worked on laptops, and there was a flaw in some sort of power thing, save mode or something for the battery. I'm not quite sure. But it actually caused the batteries to explode. That's one of the first viruses I've ever heard of that actually blew up your computer physically, not just software-wise. And Linux, of course, can get some as well. Like I said, but it's just fairly rare that they do. But not impossible. They're just considerably less likely. Now, of those virus softwares that we were talking about, there's a whole slew of them. And really you just need the one to keep your computer safe. Now, you can pay for some if you want. There's, for example, Trend Micro Kaspersky. If you remember, I mentioned him earlier, actually. He's the guy who found the virus that the CIA implanted on a bunch of computers in the Middle East. He was the actual person who took it apart and figured out what it was. But he's former Russian KGB, now head of his own antivirus security firm. McAfee, Norton, these are pretty much the three bigger pay versions. Now you have to pay money every year, so it's basically a service software. You pay every single year for them to keep viruses off your computer, and if a new one comes out, they'll update so it can't get on your computer. Now, if you don't want to pay anything, you actually don't have to. You can download AVG, Avast, Avira, which I don't think is on this list. There's a couple of them, WebRoot, and they don't cost any money. Now they do. Some of these do have paid versions, so you have to be kind of careful if you select the free version. But they work just fine. I've actually had AVG on my computer for years, and I've never had to pay for a service. I've never actually had a virus that crashed my system either. It's actually caught several of them that have tried to come on and block them. So you can use free stuff. You don't have to use the pay versions. And most computers, when you buy them, come with like a 6-month subscription to some pay service. Now, if you're going to install any of these free versions, by all means, remove the one that's on there first. Don't try to install them while it's still on there, for the previous mentioned reasons. Now, spyware also has removal tools. Now, even though viruses and spyware are very similar, there are different tools for each. Now, some of the virus scanners can actually remove spyware and stuff too. They're a big bundled package. But there are specific spyware removal tools. Malwarebytes, one of my ones that I use. There's Adaware from Lavasoft. And of course, Spybot. You see a couple of others. There's a bunch of others, actually. Some pay and some are free. Malwarebytes, Adaware, and Spybot are all free. So you pay $0. Now, I think Lavasoft and the Malwarebytes actually do have pay versions. So if you download those, you got to make sure you click free version. And sometimes they'll pop up a little message when you're installing. Do you want to switch to the pay version? So you have to be a little careful if you say free, please. And the only difference is, it may not update instantly like the others will. And it may be missing a feature or two. For the most part, those are things you could typically live without. And of course, there are plenty of others other than the ones I've listed here. If you want to know, just Google spyware removal tools, best spyware removal tools, and you'll get a list, several lists of what people think are the best. Now, I'm going to mention one more type of software. Everyone understands viruses, and you probably heard spyware and malware. Ransomware is something that's relatively new. And this does, well, it's one of the more horrible things you could possibly get, really. Now, it looks a little something like this. You'll turn on your computer and you'll see a screen that looks very official. Look, there's an FBI logo over there. It says your IP was used to visit websites containing pornography, child abuse, terrorist messages. They have kind of like the gambit listed here. And they'll list, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, Article 202. That's, Article 210. I think some of that's kind of gibberish. I'm not a lawyer, but Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, Article 202. This is all junk. It doesn't actually do anything. They say to unlock your computer, you're obliged to pay a $200 fine. Now, if you have child pornography or like abuse or anything on your computer and the government knows about it, you're going to get a lot more than a fine. You're going to get your door knocked down and they're going to confiscate your computer and throw you in jail. So this is actually just a scam. Now, originally these things were scareware. They were there just to scare you. Oh no! You could actually get rid of them and still use your computer just fine. They've actually evolved a little bit since then to be far worse than that. You have the new one called the crypto lockers. And like this, for example, it actually encrypts your entire hard drive. And encryption means basically that, well, here's your hard drive and I've changed it so you can't really access it without a key. Now, a key means, that you can unlock all your information and get it back. Now, the only way to get it back, according to CryptoLocker or whichever ransomware you happen to be unfortunate enough to get, is to pay them money. Now, this could be, $100, $200, $300. Some of them have different systems. Some delete files every day and delete more the longer you wait to pay. Others will actually just sit there and wait and then throw away the key after a certain amount of time so you can't access your files. Some of this stuff is downright nasty. Your computer is basically useless if you get something like this on your computer. And usually I would probably get someone ask, what can I do about this? What do these things do? Well, it may encrypt your hard drive so you can't access it. That's the worst of it. It may lock your computer completely so you can't do anything at all until you've actually paid money. And it could also be scareware, which what I mentioned is just basically to scare you into paying money. But what can you do about this? Well, honestly, not much. If you get one of these things on your computer, then it's truly a crypto locker or something like that, you're somewhat out of luck. I mean, it's locked. It's done. There's no way into it. You could, of course, reformat your computer, which basically means erase everything and start over from blank. You would lose all of your stuff, and you have to start all over again, but you can still use your computer after that. Hopefully you guys back up and do things like that. As long as you do that, you should be okay. Even if you do have to wipe your computer. Actually, it's recommended usually to wipe your computer every few years just to clean up all the junk. Now, of course, you could pay. I honestly wouldn't advise it because you're giving them money for basically extorting you. And the more money they get, the longer they can run their racket. So if they keep getting paid, they'll keep doing it. If everyone refuses to pay them, then they won't have the money to keep doing whatever it is they're doing. And eventually the crypto locker stuff would die out. Of course, there's always another group ready to come in and take up the mantle. Now, that's actually the end of our PowerPoints for the moment. I think I've got maybe one or so, two more lectures left, really. But this is where we're going to stop for this week.